Hi, I'm the Moorlander and this is Moorlander EDC. Today we are having a look at what I class as kind of British heritage kind of item, and that is some pumps, some trainers, some kicks, however you want to call these. These are the Ensign from Norman Walsh. Now I just need to check my phone, mainly because if you're after the exact model of these, because the Ensign line itself has actually been going for quite some time. In fact, it's one of the early lines that Norman Walsh developed back in the 80s, but this is the Ensign, black, grey and brown and army green. It's such a, I doff my cap to Norman Walsh for such a catchy name with that one. I'm just going to put one of them down because whenever we look at this one, it's exactly the same at this one, it's just a left or a right. Now, as I mentioned, Norman Walsh really are, again, what I class as a very kind of heritage English brand. I suppose a little history about them, just to kind of whet your palate. Norman Walsh himself, born in the mid to late 1940s in the northern town of Bolton. After leaving school, his father was a cobbler, so he went into making shoes. By the 70s, 80s, well, to start off with, they kind of focused on cricketer shoes because Norman Walsh himself was into cricket. It's very big in the north of England, especially around Lancashire and Yorkshire. So they made a lot of kind of cricketing shoes, but then in the 70s and 80s, when long distance running became more popular and people just started to get out and hike and go for a jog when that kind of thing happened, they then started to focus on more sports shoes or trainers, as I guess we probably call them nowadays, but specifically for athletes that were wanting to do long endurance races, and then eventually they would change them again so that they'd be for sprinters and, you know, all of that kind of athletic ilk. Then eventually they became their own business. They became the brand. It became the brand Norman Walsh, and a lot of the shoes that they developed, they continue to develop today in the factory in Bolton. Now they actually have a few different lines. Some of the lines are still made here in England, and then some of the lines they have now got a manufacturing facility in China. But what I will say, and it's hopefully something that will come across when we're having a look at these, is I certainly wouldn't worry about that kind of, something's been sent off to China to be manufactured. They do have a very high QC policy. All of the checks are very rigorous when it comes to their trainers and their shoes, even down to the materials, which again we will have a look at as part of this. But the version that I have here, these are ones that are made in China, and I certainly don't have any concerns about that whatsoever. Now, just a little bit about me, I guess, not really much about me, but as far as the sizing of these is concerned, I am a UK size 9, I'm a Europe size 43, which is a US size 10. On the inside, it does say on the inside of here, it does, yes. On the inside of here, these are a US size 10, a UK size 9, and a European size 43. And it also says CN. Is that a Chinese? Maybe because these are made in China as well. So these are a CN27, if that's any use to any of you. And I would say that they do fit as expected. There is a wee caveat with that, and that's one of the things that I'll talk a little bit about today as well. So being Moorlandese, as you would expect from a Moorlander, my feet are incredibly wide. When you first get these, if you are the type of person that has a foot that is very similar to something that you'd see just off the knee of a hobbit, you will find that these are a little bit tight when you first get them. Now, luckily the materials on here have stretched. I've had these now for about 6 months. Probably a little bit longer actually, maybe it's probably closer to 7.5 months. When I first got these, although they're a 43, they kind of felt like a 42. After some time, they now do feel like a 43. They have stretched out, and the toe box has allowed my toes a little bit more freedom. If I was to offer Norman Walsh any advice, it would be that maybe if they could develop more shoes that were friendlier to a wider foot. I mean, I've not had to endure any particular hardship to get these to be wider. However, when I first got them, the comfort level wasn't quite there. It's now close to where I've got it, and I would say if something was the most comfortable ever being 100%, I'd say that these are about 90% at the moment. They could just do with being ever so slightly wider. But how I'm using these, I think for my use with these, I can kind of work around that. Now, as far as kind of breaking these in, I've been wearing them daily to kind of, you know, nip to the shop, to nip into town, to nip into the village, and I'd say I've probably worn these more for those sort of activities. If you look at these, so they do have a very outdoors looking profile to them, especially with the soles on here. So these Vibram soles on here have been great. And I've done a few outdoors walks where I've put in, say, maybe 10k wearing these. I couldn't have done that originally when these hadn't kind of opened out a bit. I definitely would have struggled. However, in the last, say July, August time, I was able to do some walks where we've got some nice 10k walks, and that's out in the moors where it's been reasonably dry. I've done some nice walks on some beaches in North Wales in these, but for me personally, I really do like the appearance of these. I like the aesthetics of them. They have that sporty look, but they also look like you could go out into the moors, which you certainly can do. So rather than kind of beating these and throwing them in the mud like I would do with other shoes, I've actually decided to keep these so that they're nice, so that when I go for a drink with my friends, then I'll wear these instead. And certainly Mrs. Moorlander has appreciated that. Now, as far as the ruggedness of being out in the wilds, so as I mentioned, so I've had these for just over kind of 7 months. So I've had them through spring, I've had them through summer, and through the autumn now. Although these have a outdoors look and feel to them, there's no sort of waterproofing to this. So if you were to go ankle deep in some water, you're just going to end up with soaking wet feet. So you kind of have to, you know, pick your battles with a pair of shoes like these. From the outside looking in, they look like an adventuring kind of, almost like an approach shoe. I'd say that's probably the closest thing that I would say with these. They're almost like an approach shoe. Whereas you just have to pick your battles as far as whether you're going to be wading in mud, because it's not really going to be the best for these. There's no sort of waterproof lining in these whatsoever. Now, I did mention materials on here. Norman Walsh, I've used the term heritage quite a few times, and I think that's a big thing for me. Growing up in the 80s makes me feel really old saying stuff like that now, but shoes, clothes were designed so that you bought them once and they would last you 20 years, whereas now you'll buy a pair of shoes and then maybe after a few years the materials in them have started to wear. At the back of the heel on the inside here, it's started to wear. They're designed to only last a certain amount of time, so that you'll keep buying more. It's that kind of throwaway culture that we've got into. Whereas you only have to go back in time to the 1980s and before then, of course, when shoes and just garments were designed to last longer because they put real materials into them. And Norman Walsh have clearly made a decision within the ranks not to follow common fashion trends. So everything in here is designed to make sure that in 20 years, 30 years time, these will still be kicking. Anyway, So from the outside, you have a couple of you have two different types of materials on the outside. Through the front here, through the front of the toe box here, this is all made from a really nice tough suede, and then hopefully you can see through the heel section here as well. This is also made with a nice suede. I'm sorry, I've still got that cough that I can't seem to get rid of. And then through where the stitching and where the lacing eyelets all are attached as well, this uses the same suede. In between there, to make sure that you've got plenty of give in these, and I will say that these are very flexible. Although there's a big thick sole on here, they are still nice and malleable when you have these on your feet. Through here there is there are different panels, and this is a 600D nylon, which I think is really nice again because it's nice and tough, but again it's also got plenty of kind of give in these. They do have, so the Ensign itself, there are, as this is one of their oldest lines, you can get different versions of this. So there are different versions as far as the leather. The leather on this is a suede leather, but you can get them where it's more like, I'm trying to think of what the different terms of leathers are. A smoother leather. There you go. That's my full knowledge of tanning and leathers. But there are different kind of versions of these with different looks and feels, and it also comes down to the sole as well. You can get them so that they have more of a traditional athletic sole to them, where this one has more of an outdoor kind of rugged sole to it. But all of the stitching on here, so through the heel section here, this is all double stitched. Through the sides, this is all double stitched as well. And then where you have this nylon on here, again, really nice stitching on there. As far as the eyelets are concerned, instead of having eyelets where you have the holes in the leather and the laces just pull through these, to continue with that outdoors rugged aesthetic, then they have these metal eyelets that you can pass them through. There is a little bit of a rattle to them, but once you have them on your feet, you certainly don't hear that rattle because the laces pull the tension on there and it stops it from rattling. And there's just enough of them in the right spaces as well, which seems like a strange thing to say, but especially with an outdoors shoe, because you've been climbing up and down on things, then you can make sure that you get the correct tension at the front of the foot or closer to the top of the bridge of the foot, if that's the right term. But yeah, they're great for that. Now, as I mentioned, I have done some nice long lengthy walks with these this summer, but generally it's been me wearing these, propping up the bar, talking to buddies about the stupid stuff that we got up to in the 90s. Now on the inside, so the tongue itself, the tongue on here continues to use more of that nylon on the outside. It does say Walsh on the front here, and then on the inside you've got your size, which here on this one it says 43 British retro since 1961. The tongue itself isn't particularly thick, and it's also not gusseted. So again, as I mentioned before, if you are after something, because these have that look and feel that you can go out and do something, I mean, you can go out and do something rigorous with these, but if your foot goes under water at all, and in fact I wouldn't even say that it's here up to the laces, because as soon as it gets past the leather here onto the nylon sections, then the water will come into these. But if you're after something with a gusseted tongue, you're certainly not going to get that from these. But as I've mentioned, the way that I've been wearing these, I certainly don't mind with that. The tongue is wide enough as well, which seems a strange thing to say, but when you have wide feet like myself, you often get that situation where the shoes pull open quite a bit, and then you just end up with a tongue flapping around in there. But it's good with this because the tongue is wide enough that it actually fits in either side of the shoe, so that when you do them up, you certainly don't have any issues. Now, of course, if it is you have normal feet, then you're not going to have any issues with that whatsoever. Now on the inside, and this is one of the other areas which I really do like about these, so rather than just having like a nylon or a polyester lining on in here, it has a foam lining. So if you're looking at it from this side, so kind of from here down, or if we look at it on the inside there, it has a foam lining which does a good job of keeping your feet reasonably moisture free, especially this summer. They have done a good job of being able to wick some of that moisture away. But what I do really appreciate about these is here on the inside, rather than just continuing to have that material in here, it has some pigskin. It has a pigskin lining on here which dips down way past the inside, and on the back here goes all the way from the top all the way down to the bottom on the sole on the inside as well. When you first get them, it rubs. Now when I say rub, I don't mean rub in the fact that it rubs and it produces like a hot spot. It just rubs because of the tanning process and then the socks that you're wearing. After you've worn them maybe for a few days and you've put in a few miles with them, whatever that thing is that they've done to it as part of that tanning process, it just adds kind of a different texture to it because of your sock being pushed against it, and that rubbing stops, and they're just nice to wear, no issues with them whatsoever. But this is what I mean about them not scrimping on any of the materials. One of the worst things and one of the easiest things that goes when you're wearing shoes and you're putting long distance into shoes is that back section. New shoes, as I mentioned, they're just designed to be worn and thrown away after a few years, whereas with this, with it using the pigskin on there, not going to have any issues whatsoever. Now then, when it comes to cushioning whilst walking, these are very comfortable. Now, as I mentioned, there was a little bit of kind of a breaking in period as far as the toe box is concerned, but what I did find with these whilst walking is the cushioning on these is very, very nice. Now, it is reasonably thick, so if you're the type that wants to have something that's more akin to a barefoot shoe, again, these probably aren't the ones for you. Hopefully you can see here on the bottom, it's a good 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, and then here on the front again it's probably a good 10-15 mil thick there as well. They do have a reasonable drop, but again if you're after something that has a 0 drop, again probably not the shoes for you. But this is an EVA foam on the bottom which has a nice spring to it. It does have a cushion as well, which I think is a nice property of this. So when you're walking and you feel your heel go down, it will absorb some of that, but then as you walk forward, it equalizes out, is that the right term for it? But it makes sure that you get that same cushion all the way through. And then you come down to the bottom here, and then you have this really gnarly Vibram. How do you say it? Is it Vibram or is it Vibram? I've heard people say it completely different ways. But you have a Vibram sole on here. Now, having put in a good amount of miles with these, there is a little bit of wear on these. However, I would say that these are pretty bomber when it comes to wear. So here on my heel, which is clearly where I'm striking, whether that's over or under pronating, it's a little bit out of center, out to the outside. But again, I'd say that these have lasted really, really well over the last 7 months. But again, with that caveat that with these, I have probably spent more time propping up a bar in the village wearing these than I have done doing some serious miles. But all in all, I've been very happy with these. There is still that caveat, and I know I say very happy. When I first had these, I did have to kind of wear them in a little bit more, but it's not the wear in that you'd expect maybe with other shoes. It's just making sure that that toe box was just kind of widened. There was a little bit of discomfort, I will admit. And what I did was I just put them on at home, tied the laces laces as tight as I could do, because I didn't want to get them too wet. Normally I would soak them, put them on, and then tie the laces. But I had them on, I'd got some thick socks on, I tied the laces real tight on them, and I just wore them at home for a while as well. And again, that just helped that toe box to open up slightly, and it was enough to make sure that I could be comfortable wearing these. But that's a very small kind of niche issue that I have, because I have huge feet. If you don't have huge feet, you're not going to struggle with these at all, and yeah, I'm sure you will be very happy with these. So yeah, it's nice to have owned these, and it's also nice to have learned a little bit more about Norman Walsh. I'd seen them, I used to do athletics when I was young. I've got a few buddies that were into cricket and that sort of stuff. So I had seen these around in a world of Nikes and Reeboks and Adidas's. It's nice to find something that is a British heritage kind of shoe like this. And yeah, to appreciate the craftsmanship that's been put into it. So yeah, so there you go. This is the Norman Walsh Ensign. What was the name? Was it grey, black and brown and navy green, whatever the original colour is. One thing I forgot to mention, once that plane goes away, is so when you get these, the laces on these, you get 2 other pairs of laces. These are a salmony kind of colour, which fits the other colours on here. They come with similar laces to these, but they're almost like this sandy colour here. And then there's a pair of just kind of ropey style laces. I like the ones that were on here, so I decided to keep these on. Yeah, so there you go, a little bit about laces as well. So there you go. Now I will leave some links below if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Norman Walsh, and if you want to have a look at where you can pick some of these up from. I'll leave some of my social media links below as well, so that you can see more from me here on Moorlander EDC, and my sister channel Moorlander Tactical, where I look at more kind of everyday tactical items. And whether you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, as always, stay safe, stay Moorlander and stay EDC. Oh god, it's so hard not trying to cough. Ever had a cough but you need to, like, conference calls are the worst, aren't they? Anyway, comes around the sides through the oh, that didn't go well. I need to check this. It's the weird name. I mean, they're called the Ensign. It is Ensign, isn't it? Ensign. Black, grey and brown and army green. Or a polyester material to back this. It uses this swine, goddamn swine. Tell you, old pip old swine. It's pig skin, not swine skin. Swine nut, as some may have said, some may not have said. So rather than having the holes that you would normally have, they use these eye holes. Metal eyes. No, metal eye hole. Eyelet, you frickin' idiot. Eyelet. Is that the right? God damn it. Eyes. It's not eyes. Can't be eyes. Eyelets. Now I'm trying to work out what day this comes out on. I think this is probably going to come out on Wednesday. I think it's coming out on Wednesday. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, let's just make sure it comes out on Wednesday. Hope you're good. Hope you're all having a good hump day. Just a few more sleeps and then it's the weekend. Hurrah! Yeah. So cool. Thanks for watching. Happy Wednesday. See you soon. You can go now. I'm gonna go. See you in a bit. Love you. Bye.